Hi friends, and welcome. Today we are going to visit one of the most famous distilleries of bourbon, Buffalo Trace. So even though you may not be in the bourbon scene, you've possibly heard of some of the more famous ones such as Weller, or even the king of bourbons, Pappy Van Winkle. So come along with us. We're going to show you how bourbon is barreled and bottled, and we'll even get to try a few. Welcome to Living Phase 2.
Today we continue our trip in north central Kentucky, specifically the Bardstown area. We've made a few other videos related to that. A couple of bed and breakfasts we stayed at, such as the Bourbon Manor or Dant Crossing. We've also made some videos on Three Boys Distillery, a small, nice micro distillery in a barn that was great. And we also went to the James B. Beam Distillery, the big boy of all of them. And if you haven't seen those videos, please be sure to take a look at those. And in fact, as we come out with new videos, it would be awesome if you would hit that subscribe button and hit the notifications. That way, as we come out with new videos, all related to living in phase 2 of life, you get notified and then you can see those videos right away. So let's talk a little bit about Buffalo Trace. Honestly, just complete disclosure, one of my favorite lines of bourbon. You may have heard of the, of course, namesake Buffalo Trace bourbon, but they make an entire array of bourbons. So a few of them, well, you can look at a few here. They have everything from the Weller products. You see a couple of those, Eagle Rare, Blantons, E.H. Taylor, and then on the, as you get the Wheatley vodka, named after Harlan Wheatley, their master distiller, Benchmark, which is of course one of their, as they say, lower shelf ones, along with Ancient Age, and of course one of Nancy's favorite and a lot of the people in our family, the Buffalo Trace Bourbon Cream, one of the best we truly think on the market. And we're going to talk a little bit about a new product that I don't have any here, but that we got to try, and that's Freddy's Old Fashioned Sodas. They were just excellent, and we'll talk about those as we get into the tasting. So, first of all, the tour.
The tour is about 45 minutes long, although it depends on which tour that you choose. Some of them can last for several hours. These tours book up fast, friends. So pro tip, be sure to book online. They open up the tours about 3 weeks prior to the month. So for instance, if you're going in October, after that first week of September, September 6th, because once those tours open up,
the whole month fills up.
Instantly.
This is like trying to buy, well, back in the 80s, Van Halen tickets or something. I mean, when that month opens up, it just fills right up. I mean, I was really watching for it and hitting the refresh button, seeing if when it would come up. It opened up, and the tour that we were on, which was the barrel tour we're going to talk about, one that I really did want to take, it was already half full by the time I scheduled it. So
it says on the computer what day the tours will open up. So if they go online and watch closely, so be prepared. You do this ahead of time.
Yeah, and in fact, it even says something to the effect of tours for, as you just said, tours for October will open on September, such and such day at between 9 and 10 in the morning. So they will tell you specifically when you should go online and take a look at those tours. And if you're planning on going to Buffalo Trace, you really need to do that.
This is a great tour. It really is.
Next pro tip, as we're talking about booking your tours, is book your tour as early as possible in the morning, no later than lunchtime, because if you're wanting to go and get a bottle of Blantons or E.H. Taylor or something, they put a few of those out in the morning, but they get gobbled up very, very quickly.
Because these bottles are only available to people who have reserved tours.
Yes.
So, yeah. And another thing too is if you haven't reserved ahead of time, they do get cancellations. So don't feel down and out if you didn't get a tour reserved. If you're in the area and that's something you really want to do and you didn't do that ahead of time, go in and check and see if they don't have some cancellations, because they oftentimes do.
In fact, there were people there just showing up when we were there, just asked what time they had tours, and there were tours that I know when I looked on the website when we booked were sold out, and they had openings. A lot of people go in and they just book, and and then they don't necessarily, because one of the things about Buffalo Trace that's different than a lot of distilleries, the tours are all free. So you're not paying to sign up. You're just signing up, and a lot of those slots fill up, and then people don't go, they cancel, etc. So there's
by going on these tours, you get these special bottles.
Well, you get a
bourbon,
chance to buy a allocated bottle if they have it that day. You know, depending on what they have. I mean, there's a lot of caveats that there's no promises, but you then do get an opportunity to go to the gift shop before your tour, and you can go in and potentially buy the I hate to say allocated bottle, but like a bottle like Blantons or H. Taylor or something, you may have a ability to buy that in the morning, but you've got to get there early. Even if your tour's later, go in, check in for your tour, and then go to the gift shop first thing when they open. That's one way that you can potentially get an allocated bottle.
Well, Mike, I really want you to tell them about the tour. I think you can describe it very well.
Well, the reason we took this tour is, as you've seen from some other videos, and we've been to the Bardstown area many times. We've taken other tours such as Maker's Mark and Barton's, and I mean, we can go through a whole list of them. We've been to most of the major distilleries, Four Roses, etc. But the difference of this tour is it was called the Barrel Tour. And what you do is you follow a barrel through its life cycle at Buffalo Trace. And this tour was, I thought was just amazing. This tour, you went right there on the production lines. This was not a show put on. You're walking around the production area, and it starts where they're taking the barrels from their cooperages. Most distillers do not make their own barrels. They contract. There's a couple of different cooperages in Kentucky that make them. And we're watching them in the warehouse roll right off the trucks, and they're filling up those the lines and lines of barrels.
Yeah, down these railroad tracks.
Right, exactly. And then they get pushed on over to the next area where they're going to be filled with White Dog, which is the raw alcohol that's based on whatever mash bill. Remember, a mash bill is that mix of corn and rye and potentially wheat or barley, and then they get filled. And we followed that barrel. It went off and off the truck, rolled on across the street on a track, and then we went right over to where a gentleman was filling them with the White Dog and hammering in that bung. And oh my gosh, he was amazing to watch.
Strong.
It was hypnotizing to watch.
He was strong.
Yeah, and you can see the video here of him doing that, and we're standing right there. Again, this is not a show. This is not somebody just giving a presentation. These are the real people making that bourbon that you're going to enjoy a few years from now, in your home. And it was an honor for us to be able to watch them do their craft. And it was hot, hard work. I think the day we were there, what was it, 93 degrees?
Yeah.
And I felt for these guys and thanked every one of them for making that bourbon for me to enjoy. And then after we left where they were filling the barrels and putting the bungs in, we went and then went to a rick house or a barrel house, and again, just love that smell. It's that angel share coming out of those barrels, which is the alcohol evaporating through the barrels. And they told us about how they barrel, what happens, the differences in being in different areas of the rick house. And in fact, you can see back here the Benchmark bourbon, a lower shelf bourbon, but they now have some different ones, and you can see this one's called Top Floor. Well, the top floor of the barrel house gets a lot more big temperature swings, and that can impart much more flavor and much more character to a bourbon much quicker. And so they've actually released some of these lower shelf bourbons that have some actually very good qualities that if you get a chance to try it, that Benchmark Top Shelf is very good. You can even see a future W.L. Weller barrel here that I got a picture of as I was standing by that when our tour guide was giving the tour. One of my favorite bourbons. In fact, I grew up with my dad, my uncles, everyone. That's what we drank was Weller. So, a little bit of sentimental touch there. Next, we went across the street, and the barrels that had aged were rolling down the barrel tracks. Long line of barrels, just looked like an infinite line of barrels. And again, you're right there. They had to stop the barrels rolling down the tracks so we could walk across and go into where they dump the bourbon. And again, rolling right off those tracks, popping those or drilling those bungs out, popping them out, and watching all that barrel dump or
the bung
bourbon.
is a stopper that goes
Yes.
in the barrel. Yes, there's a hole drilled
Yeah.
in the side of the barrel,
Yeah.
and then that stopper, that bung goes in there.
That's
to
right.
seal
That's
it
right. That's
up.
how they fill it, and that's how they dump it. Then after we watched them dump, it all goes into a large container, depending on how they're doing it. The previous tour, we did go into the Blantons room. They have a special building where they do Blantons, and that's all single barrel. So they dump a barrel, it goes in, and then it flows right into the bottles. Whereas in this case, we were in the larger dump house where they blend the different barrels, and then they make sure that they're going to meet the taste that their master blender would make sure that every bottle of Buffalo Trace will then taste the same. After that, we finished following that through. Now the bourbon goes in, gets bottled, and then we go to the tasting room.
That's always a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is. So tell us a little bit about your experience there with the tasting.
So we got to taste some Wheatley vodka, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Sazerac Rye, and their bourbon cream, as well as some of their Freddy's root beer.
Yeah.
So hold up the bourbon cream here.
Yeah.
So I refrigerate this after it's open, but it's really good if you take the Freddy's root beer and you mix it half and half with the bourbon cream. It's a great root beer float.
It's amazing root beer float.
And I also, in the afternoon, if I want a cup of coffee, this is really good in my coffee.
Yeah, yeah, and even if you're not a huge bourbon fan, this is still, my mother, or some, my sister-in-law, some of them are not fans of bourbon. They absolutely love this. It's that blend of the cream and the bourbon taste. Yeah.
And I want to say too, we've tried several bourbon creams that are on the market. This is my favorite.
Yes.
Hands down.
It can be hard to get
Every
a little
time.
bit, but this one, I think, I agree with you, beats every one of them out there. So, but yeah, enjoyed our tasting very much. Actually, after we were leaving our tasting, I got to say hello and to Freddie, who's one of the famous tour guides there. If you've ever seen some of the shows on YouTube or Netflix, he's been profiled in that. He's got a great long history. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but he's just
a treat for you.
He's an amazing guy. He really is. And just to pass on a little story with that. He had told a story about his father retired from Buffalo Trace, and his grandfather and his father, and then he ended up working for Buffalo Trace because his father wanted him to. When his father retired, they gifted him a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, and for you bourbon fans out there know that isn't a very, very rare and expensive bottle of bourbon. And Freddie was sitting out with his father and having a drink, and they took a drink, and he started to put the cork back in the bottle, and his dad looks at him and says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm putting the cork on." He goes, "So we can save the rest." And he goes, "Why would you do that?" He goes, "Dad, do you know how expensive this bottle is?" And he says, "No." He goes, "A bottle of bourbon is meant to be shared, and stories shared, and life experiences." And I kind of took away from that. And when our daughter got married, we had all the guys together with my father and all the son, the future son-in-law and the current son-in-laws and my sons, and we all sat around and we actually watched a John Wayne movie, opened up a bottle of bourbon, and all shared it that day. And I told Freddie that story, and he goes, now the next time, remember, get everybody in that room to sign the bottle.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and
I wished we'd have thought of that, because that really would have been special.
Yeah, so those kind of things are the little things that you get when you do these adventures that are not necessarily expected. You get these interactions, so don't be afraid to talk to people, to reach out. You never know what you're going to encounter. And Freddie, if you happen to watch this, thank you very much. That meant a lot to me, the little addition. And I've got another bottle of bourbon. We've got our son getting married next year, and we're absolutely going to do that, and everyone's going to sign that bottle. So as with every adventure, after it finishes, it ends in the
gift shop,
just like a Disney ride or anything.
There's, for each of the different types of bourbon that they make, or brands of bourbon, there's t-shirts, sweatshirts, there's all kinds of different paraphernalia. There's coasters,
everything, barrel heads with logos on them. I mean, anything you can think of.
So it's a fun place to poke around at the end of your tour.
Yeah, especially if you want anything to adore your bar or your, at home where you keep your bourbon. So, well, We had a great time as always. This has been the second or third time we've toured Buffalo Trace, and to be honest, I would do it again. They do such a great tour. It's a great tasting, great people. I mean, for me, it's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10
Absolutely.
for me as well.
And I would highly recommend the barrel tour. So if
Yeah,
you've never
that
been
was
there, do the tasting tour. That gives you the big overview. If you haven't done other distilleries, but this gives you a whole different perspective of the process following that barrel through its life cycle. It was a great way to do a tour.
Yes.
So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And like we mentioned before, make sure that you subscribe, turn on your notifications, catch our other videos, and we will see you again soon.
Have a great day, friends. Take care.
Take care.